What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the 8th album by English electronic band Depeche Mode. Basically, this product is called Songs of Faith and Devotion, and it came out in the spring of 1993. So the thing about this particular product is I do see the similarities between this product and their previous album Violator from 1990. That was a pretty quality and overall pitch album to kind of get. That was definitely one that Violator was a definitely pretty emphatic and just overall pulsating type product that had a lot of like mental emphasis about it, just very visceral pitches like that. Definitely had a pretty heavy illustrated impact. I definitely had a pretty heavily illustrated impact that I felt last year as far as those pitches going to happen. So I wanted to review this one to see if that emphasis was continued, just the impact of it. It definitely is. I would say within the fair behind. I do feel like Violator is probably like a hair or two strength here, but this is a relatively brief product. Considering the fact that Depeche Mode had been around since like the early 80s, I question some of those earlier type products if that sort of emphasis was on this. But I definitely think it's just, like I was saying, a very mental kind of head trip of a project to kind of get very visceral and just ghostly, just a swirling type hauntingness that there's just not many musicians that kind of have that overall emphatic type tone. Maybe U2 is like that, some of those type folks, but there's not many I can think of. Definitely some original type factorments. It kind of reminds me of like a heads up on like something like 9 Inch Nails or Marilyn Manson in his earlier days as far as those pitches kind of happen. But I do like the impact of it. Definitely some emphaticness to kind of get here, and I would say that this like a good 1-2 punch with Violator. It does have some similarities to that product. It's not quite as it doesn't have like the seemingly doesn't have the huge kind of overall, and seemingly doesn't have like the huge impactful ones like Personal Jesus or some of those type of ones, World in My Eyes, some of those type of favorites. But apparently some of these songs did pretty relatively solid within the pitches. There were at least 2 number ones on like the alternative rock charts, which I think was I Feel You and Walking in My Shoes. Just would have to say both I Feel You and Walking in My Shoes were number 1, so just within the pitch. But I do like the depiction behind this product. I think the main reason why it won't get a higher score is just because of the pitch, that there's just not enough songs in here. If there had been 12 and I wound up basically out of the 10 songs on this particular album, I wound up recommending 7. So that's an excellent type fare. I want to say with Violator, I wound up recommending probably 8 or 9 out of 10. I think there's only like a couple I didn't recommend. It was just within the fare. I'd say the emphasis behind this product is really strong. I just overall like the feeling, nice flavor of this particular product to kind of get just within the tone behind it. Like I said, it's just another good outing of like Violator, just without like the seemingly more mass marketed singles that took over like a good chunk of the 90s and late 80s type fare. But the aesthetic to this product is really strengthy. So we'll just get towards. So basically, there were 4 singles off this project here. The first one was I Feel You. This is like a good bravado and ghostly kind of cruise out. I Feel You is like a good bravado song and ghostly kind of cruise out. I would definitely feel like some outskirts kind of traverse to kind of get here, just some in the wind kind of stock quality and hollow kind of Depeche Mode to kind of have just within the pitch. Kind of reminds me of something that Smash Mouth would do on one of their summer type joints to just cruise around, but just a lot more emphatic and ethereal. I'd have to say just within the pitch. If you were to take like a ghastly personality like The Weeknd or Marilyn Manson or someone like that and just kind of have the emphasis of like some summer kind of cruise arounds and like some highway stretches near canyons, some of those type pitches that you would see kind of in like a Toyota commercial or like a car commercial, something like that, just where they're kind of cruising on like the outskirts of towns, just within some of those relative type pitches, I'd say. But it's a good, nice one to kind of have just that ghostly type of feel, just some stretch arounds. Good concept for that. Basically takes like an otherworldly type fare and just makes it a little bit more level, but just within the tone of just still the ghastliness is in effect on here, just for some breath of fresh air typeness kind of getting like calm you. Walking in My Shoes is another nice one. It's like an eerie kind of local activity kind of song to kind of get just some extra time kind of pondering, just pay bills type song kind of have, just localized type fare, grab a snack and some ghoulish shouts to kind of get. So the thing about this particular product is it's not quite as emphatic. Like I feel like it is emphatic, but it's just kind of the tone that's just a little bit more ground level and just more not quite as like up here type aspects. It's just kind of more level within the tone, where I think I do like this concept of getting like a ground level. I do like this tone of getting like a ground level variation, something. I'm glad that Depeche Mode is still kind of like emphatic and just overall has their looming and ghostly type appeal behind them. It's just kind of the tone of just like, hey, you know, some of these folks, they do go to gas stations, they do get like snacks and possibly smoke pitches like that, just standard fare, have to pay bills, get stamps, hit up the mailbox, pay phone bill, electric bill, pitches like that, just within the tone. Just feels it. I felt like the emphasis behind Violator was just a little bit more. I mean, the lyrics on that particular album, Violator, were probably emphatic within a sense, but that one is just a lot more just kind of relishing and kind of like it's this aspect of like the emphasis of just like being lofty. But this one is a little bit more like amongst like getting stuff done. Like Walking in My Shoes, just a residential stroll that's just real strengthy. It just feels weird that, you know, some of these folks were kind of making songs like this, despite feels strange to kind of get like a residential stroll type tune, despite the fact of this loftiness of how they convey it, so it's a good pitch for that. But Condemnation is the third single, and this is kind of an almost churchy type one, just a real kind of it's a real kind of down in the dumps type one to kind of get here, just a reflective kind of losing music to kind of have just within the pitch, just losing as if maybe you had a bad day, bad hair day, something like that, just kind of brooding. It's like another extra time song. It's another kind of extra time song to kind of have here, just smoke a joint, kind of bruised and ruffled day to kind of have for some of that, just a brewing song and just a ruminate type one to kind of get, whether it's just repenting or just reflected some of that type fare, maybe you lost a basketball game, something of that relative pitch, just within the relative type fare, just having like that particular tone, just, I mean, just the pitch behind is just kind of the tone of just like really kind of more emphatic, like it's the same emphaticness that Depeche Mode typically kind of has, but it's just within the aspect of being like, damn, I'm kind of shell-shocked a little bit here just in the pitch behind it, but it is a nice one just for some of that, just repent type music, good wintry type tone within the fare. In Your Room is a nice one as well, and then this takes it back to Violator, which is definitely welcome, I'd have to say within that. This reminds me of music from Violator, like I was saying, good concept for that, just a pulsating kind of night venue bruiser to kind of get here, something like World in My Eyes or one of those type singles. I do own Violator from 1990, but I don't have it on my new MP3 player, so I'm going to have to throw some of those songs on there, but it's like a ghost, this song is very ghostly, and it oozes pretty well to kind of get here just within the tone behind it, so it's just a nice one. It's some of those more, I guess I could just look it up, songs like Enjoy the Silence, Policy of Truth, World in My Eyes, not so much Personal Jesus, but just some of those type ones that were more the second, third, and fourth singles from Violator. It had to say just that same sort of fare, just Miami Vice kind of emphatic neon type night venue clubs, strip clubs, pitches like that. It had to say a good tone for that, nice rave type music. So that's the basic pitch behind this particular album. So I just would have to say, like I was saying, there's 10 songs on this particular album, and the only 3 songs I don't recommend on here would just be Judas, Get Right With Me, and One Caress. So to talk about these songs, basically, Judas is just kind of a more personal type one, almost like a slow jam type song, but just really didn't pull out the vibe as well. It was just a little bit more just like plush in a way that just didn't really convey, like, I mean, it was a ghostly type song, but it just didn't nail it with like the emphasis. And it was just like a song off of Violator. I feel like Blue Dress just nailed the vibes that Judas was trying to do a lot better just within the pitch. It was just kind of a clumsy type one. One Caress was just kind of a more personal type one. It's the same thing with Get Right With Me. These are just more upright type ones for like the policy of just getting towards it and just being optimistic within a certain type tone, but it just didn't nail the delivery as far as those pitches kind of happen. These are just more personal type ones that just didn't have as much emphatic kind of production or just overall the appeal. It just doesn't. I feel like the emphasis of some of the upright type ones just needed more work, I'd have to say, but it's just within the tone. But the other 3 songs out of 10 on here I do recommend, so just talk about some of these. Basically, Rush is one of the best songs off this particular album. This is a very nice one just within the pitch behind it. It's like a ruffled kind of nightclub turn-up, I'd have to say. The album needed another bop like this for sure, I would definitely have to say. This competes with like the singles as far as some of the best songs on here, probably apart from like Walking in My Shoes. It's probably top 3 of songs on here apart from Walking in My Shoes and probably In Your Room, some of those type pitches, I'd have to say. But I look after it, this is like some good electro-dance jive, just like 1990s Violator, I'd have to say. Some of those type pitches, same sort of dance thrills within that fare. It really feels ripped out of early 90s, 1991, 1994, some of those type pitches. This real nice classic type one. This is a real casual type bop to kind of get here. And I kind of feel like this particular album is not quite as rendition to like more folks that are more past like the mid-90s in terms of their come up as far as those pitches can happen. If you don't remember albums like Nirvana's Nevermind and like White Zombies Lost Exorcisto from 1992 and like 9 Inch Nails is like the Downward Spiral, some of those type pitches is just kind of within the tone and just being able to say something that's a little bit more 90s and late 80s flavored within the pitch, but it is some emphatic type stuff. And Rush is definitely one of the most casual type ones to go for, like a starting point if you don't know them as well. Mercy in You is a quality one as well. It's like a riled kind of 80s, 90s kind of emphatic hangout fog to kind of get here. Just a nice foot tap groove to kind of have about this particular song. Basic kind of smoke a joint, TV's on type fare. This one's a little bit more personable. This one has a little bit of 90s cheese about it just within the standard type fare, but I do like the aspect of you just getting some of this. It's just real. It's not so much 90s type cheese, but just the emphasis of really being it just reeks of like the 90s type fare. Just a real type one. This feels for older crowds as far as those pitches can happen, not as quite casual bound nowadays. I'd have to say within the pitch, it really feels ripped out of 1993 and just within that tone of taking it back to that more so than being something more for like today's times that could get some routine kind of spins here. But I do like this song. Good, nice one to kind of get, and this nice appeal for like some hangout type fare. Definite, good one. Not quite as snappy as Rush or Walking in My Shoes, some of those type of ones, or like In Your Room. There are some good social type ones. So some of these are actually lengthier. I kind of feel like at least 2 of these. In Your Room, the 4th single, is a little bit lengthy of a song. I do like that one, but it probably should have been shortened by like 35-40 seconds, and it's the same thing with Higher Love. I mean, Higher Love is an excellent type song. Really like the melodies on this particular song. I feel like Dave Gahan definitely nails this on this particular song. This like an emphatic kind of dark wave with like some ghostly 90s flavor about it, like most of some of these bops on here. It's a deep, hollow kind of dance ambience kind of getting this. It's like some 80s Miami to kind of feel within. It's like some 80s Miami to kind of feel within that particular vibe. So it's just some neon type clubs, bitches like that within that fair. If neon was kind of around pink 90s or pink 80s, neon was kind of around like the early 90s just within that pitch. But I look after it. It has some pretty good draw and this overall impact as far as those tones kind of happen. So there are some ones like Rush, Higher Love, I feel like In Your Room, Walking in My Shoes, Mercy and You, some of these type of ones. At least half the album has some relative kind of hangout and night venue type snaps. Not quite as powerful as like some of the ones, like the first couple singles off of Violator within the pitch, but I do like the concept of In Your Room returning to some of those type vibes. I kind of feel like it tries different. Like I said, it's not quite as night venue type bound and quite as social. It's not quite as social in the singles, I'd have to say, just within the pitch behind it. It's just a little bit more residential and just more daily living within the pitch, but I look after it. It nails these particular songs, but the impact for how it delivers upon is just a little bit different. It's lofty, but it also takes it to ground level as far as realizing you gotta get standard tasks kind of done, responsibilities, pitches like that, just within the fair behind it. It's just not quite as relished, like I said, just not as relishing in like its emphasis, I'd have to say, but so that's the tone behind it. But this is a nice one. So in terms of what I'm going to score this album, you're recommending 7 songs out of 10 on here. I'm going to go ahead and give this album either like an 8.25 or an 8.5. I'll just look after it. I'll go ahead and give this album like an 8.25. I would give it a higher score, but I realized that not liking 3 songs out of 10 on here is still within a relative pitch. That's barely a little bit more than half, I'd have to say, within the impacts. It's still relatively high. I realize it probably should be like a 7.75 or something like that, but it's just the fact that this is a short type product and the songs that are good are pretty strengthy within the tone. This is a social type project, does have the appeal. Really do do enjoy and adore the concept of like the ghostliness and just the emphasis of the melodies and just the lofty type of appeal that they deliver so oftenly. This is in the pitch, so it's a nice one. The social score, that's kind of tricky. I think I'll give the social score like an 8.75 or a 9. I think I'll give the social score like a 9 out of 10 just because the emphasis is pretty nailed on here. Most of this is pretty good outings. It's some good hangout, some good homies and hangout type fairs, some good this overall appeal, 80s night venues, pitches like that, neon type clubs, some of that leftover Miami Vice type vibes, even as far out as 1993, 94. Just within the pitch behind it, just nails upon it. Like I said, it probably needed another huge song like the couple first singles from Violator, like Personal Jesus, and the other first single off of those ones, like World in My Eyes and some of those type ones. But I do feel like these songs are, you know, good on here, but they're just more standard out and about, just kind of daily living within the pitch behind it. So that's just the thing. But I think it's strengthy. It does have the gems on here. It's just different, but it works for daily living. That's the pitch behind it. So in terms of the future, not really sure as to what Depeche Mode has kind of been up to in recent times. I'd say I want to say that they at least dropped an album in 2022, some pitches like that, some good fairs to kind of get within the tone behind it. They have plenty of albums. I'm probably going to have to go back to some of their earlier 80s albums to see the emphasis, and I do want to get to like some of their late 90s albums. I was just kind of trying to figure out which album I wanted to review, if I wanted to go back further, if I wanted to go back forward just to see, because I kind of question if like Violator was just a fluke, and it clearly wasn't just within the tone, but it is. There just are some drag type moments within a shorter prospect of like a packaging, but I would have to say it still hits mostly pretty heavily. I do like the emphasis and emphatic feel about it. It really nails it. So that's the pitch behind it. I do recommend this. It's just not as casual bound for like younger folks that may not remember like early 90s, mid 90s past, you know, past like a certain point, but it does have like a pretty strengthy type appeal.